a speech recognition engine provider, an SDK provider. SDK stands for Software Development Kit, so we basically develop speech recognition solutions as part of a kit and then provide them to the likes of Winscribe, who can then use those technologies to embed in their own systems. I've worked with Reconosco for 6 months. I've been in the speech recognition market for over 8 years now. I've got experience in sales, consultancy and implementation of some very large speech recognition projects in the UK NHS. So some of the trusts with over 1,000 speech recognition authors, some very large organisations. Reconosco, the company, the group of people involved in Reconosco most of them used to work for Philips and actually built the Philips Speech Magic speech recognition engine. But then, when it was acquired by Nuance, decided to set up their own company and utilise the Microsoft speech recognition technology to build, as I've already mentioned, an SDK to work with that. So when I first started in the speech recognition industry back in the day, there was a very different view of speech recognition than the one that I see out in the market today. And part of that was down to the fact that some of the early technology that people had tried, I mean, probably almost everyone in this room has tried speech recognition at some point, whether it's on your mobile phone, IBM Via Voice, Dragon, whatever it may be. And the early technology only really worked for the people that put an awful amount of time into it, is generally what we've seen. Also, we didn't have many seamless products and integrations, so the speech recognition technology was quite separate. It wasn't integrated into a solution like Winscribe Text, for example. Also, it wasn't always implemented in the right way, so there were a lot of providers that would implement speech recognition standalone and wouldn't necessarily always consult with the individuals and the organisations before they implemented it in order to make sure it fit around what they wanted to do. And something that hasn't changed and that probably never will change is that individuals have a reluctance to change, especially when you're asking someone to completely change the way they're working, which was often the case with some of the past technologies. One of the first times I ever met a user of speech recognition, I went to probably my first week working with my old company. I went to a hospital up in the northeast, and they had rolled out speech recognition trust-wide, and there was a medical secretary. Her name was Joanne. I remember going in to meet her, and I was fresh, just in the job, and I was really excited. I said, how are things? How are you getting on with the technology? And she said, I hate it. It's rubbish. I can't wait until it fails and we can get rid of it and we can go back to tapes. She even admitted to me that she'd been hiding the digital hardware from the consultant so that they had to use the analog tape machine. Her name was Joanne, as I said, and I thought, wow, this is going to be difficult. I've got to sell this, and this first day on the job, this is what I'm coming up against. But things changed, and Joanne changed actually, and I'll come back to that. So now the technology has improved hugely. As I said, we're using the latest core Microsoft technology, which is far quicker than the speech rec technology of the past. And that's quite a big deal. The speed at which the text is displayed on the screen makes a big difference for clinicians, because with some of the older technologies, they would dictate, there'd be a lag, and then in a second or two, the text would come up. And instead of thinking about what they were going to say next, they were actually waiting to see the results of what they'd already said and make sure they were correct, and it then interrupted the flow of their work. And of course, one thing we always say is speech recognition is never going to be great from day one. It requires some bedding in time. However, the out-of-the-box accuracy has improved hugely, and that means that it's an easier sell to an individual when they use it from day one and they can see that it works. The likes of Winscribe have developed integrated solutions as well, so not just selling speech recognition technology, but selling a workflow solution of which speech recognition is a big part in some places, but it's still just a part of the overall solution, and that's important. And the user attitudes towards the technology have changed as well, and that's partly due to the fact that the technology has improved, but it's also due to the changing landscape of the NHS, the things that we're discussing today, the paperless agenda, the need for more structured reporting, etc. I actually saw Joanne recently, and Joanne has now completely changed her approach. She's now one of the champions for the technology in the trust, which I couldn't believe. And she basically changed her whole view on the technology after using it for a period of time, and when she saw the way that it changed her job and the way that she was able to do things. She was one of the pioneers. I mean, Eddie talked about leaders earlier. Well, Joanne, she's a medical secretary. It doesn't matter what your role is in an organisation. You don't have to be senior management. You can still be a leader. And Joanne is a leader because she actually started coming up with ideas and ways that the technology could be used differently. And one of the things she did, which I know it's been mentioned today already, but back then it was quite new, is instant outpatient letter production. So she went off her own back and sat in an outpatient clinic and transcribed, with speech recognition being used back end. She transcribed letters and she handed them to patients as they left the clinic, and that was a very, very interesting new thing back then. So even though attitudes can be quite negative at first, they can change as well, and I've seen a lot of that over the years. In the NHS, the majority of hospitals still use back-end speech recognition. I know a lot of you will be familiar, but some may not. Speech recognition is delivered in two ways generally. Front-end, where you dictate, you see the results appear in real time, and back-end, where you dictate, the results are usually transcribed on a server somewhere, and then they're delivered back either for the author or for a transcriptionist to review, correct, and then process. Back-end is still the most popular way of working in the UK in my experience, and that's mainly down to the fact that the consultant or the author doesn't have to really change the way they work. They can pick up a microphone or a portable device or an iPhone, whatever it may be. They can just dictate in the traditional way, and then they can forget and move on to the next report until it comes to sign-off. Front-end, however, is becoming more and more of a topic, and there are many reasons for that. One, the fact that the technology is much better now, so it's easier to use front-end speech recognition. It works better, it's quicker, it's more accurate. The fact that there's an EPR focus now, so a lot of the EPR companies are promoting speech recognition, and also the direct input of data by clinicians into systems, and speech recognition helps with that. And also things like the paperless push for 2018, which speech recognition, I'm sure you all agree, will play a big part in. And speech recognition is now proven. There are several examples you can read on the Winscribe website, and also just out in the market in general, of return on investment based on speech recognition. And by return on investment, I don't just mean financial, of course. I mean improvements in patient care. The trust that Joanne worked for that I mentioned earlier, when we first went into that trust, they had 12-month backlogs in some departments, which means you went to visit that department and you didn't get your letter for a year, which I think we can all agree is not really acceptable. And their main driver for implementing speech recognition wasn't financial, it was patient care based. They wanted to improve patient care in the trust, and they now turn around reports in some of those departments in 48 hours or less. And they say they couldn't have done it without, number one, an integrated workflow solution, but also number two, speech recognition. Okay, I could spend all day talking about this, but I won't. So you can see for yourself, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of some of the benefits of speech recognition. You can split the benefits into things like staff, patient, organisation, and some of them are interlinked anyway. But faster turnaround time, that's a benefit for all. The second point there, less time spent serving the needs of IT systems. Somebody actually said that to me a couple of weeks ago. I was speaking to an individual, and his father is a GP, and he said that he works in the US, and he's been a GP for over 35 years, and in the last year they just implemented an EMR system, an EPR EMR, and he said in that year he got 2 complaints from patients, and it was the first time he'd ever had a complaint from a patient in 35 years, and he got 2, and both of the complaints were exactly the same, that they were regarding his bedside manner, and they both said something along the lines of, when I was in the room with you, I felt like I was getting in the way of you doing your tax return, instead of actually having a consultation, because I spent most of the time talking to the back of your head while you were inputting data in a system. And he said, I need to spend less time serving the needs of an IT system and more time serving the needs of my patient. And the improvement of morale, and Joanne's a prime example of that. I mean, this organisation that I've mentioned, they actually completely changed their admin and clerical process using the technology. They were able to put a clear career progression in place, the likes of Joanne could progress within the organisation off the back of her role in being a leader of the technology. And also the fact that when this technology is implemented properly and these benefits are realised, then a medical secretary or a transcriptionist knows that when they go on holiday, they're not going to come back to 2 weeks of work that no one's done, because everyone's just working one-to-one with a consultant, and that work's just going to be sitting there. Benefits for the patient, of course, again, turnaround time, continuity of care with a proper integrated solution, and improved information security. I know information security is a hot topic and is always mentioned, but the proper integrated solution ensures that's improved. The organisation, increase of productivity and optimisation of transcription capacity. It's not always that you necessarily need to do more. It's the fact that it's the old 80-20 rule. Often 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people, and these systems allow you to actually see that and to see where the work is within your organisation and to reroute some of it and to actually optimise what you've already got. You can reduce costs, and that comes from a number of areas, and also the fact that you've got accurate management data. You can actually see what's going on down to the fine detail. That was mentioned in one of the presentations earlier, and we incorporate that as well in that we allow very specific management data of the speech recognition element too. So what are the keys to a successful implementation of speech recognition? Well, change management is one of the biggest kind of mistakes that I've seen in the past with implementing speech recognition is when it's seen as an IT project, and when it's run as an IT project as any other IT project, and it's actually a change management project, and user engagement is absolutely key. And one of the things I would always encourage is that users are engaged with right from the beginning, before any implementation, right from the decision making process all the way through to being able to see the system, to have a say in how the system's going to look and feel when they start using it. Not that they turn up to a training session having never seen it before and then are expected to start using it. Consultancy is key, so making sure that the speech recognition solution fits around the way that people work in that organisation, and that can change hugely from department and differ hugely from department to department as well. Has to be integrated, again I've mentioned that a few times. The implementation's key, so that the time frames are clear beforehand and that everyone understands what's expected. And the fact that it's a flexible solution as well, so that you're not giving an individual one way of working. We've already talked about back-end and front-end speech recognition. You know, one of the benefits of the solutions that Winscribe offer is that you can do both, and that's really key as well. And Winscribe QSR, you're going to have a demo of that I think later, so I won't go into too much detail, but what we've done is we've listened to the feedback from our partners in that although the majority of the users will be using the Winscribe workflow solution in speech recognition within that, sometimes they also want to dictate emails with speech recognition, they want to dictate into the EPR. You know, we saw that diagram earlier that Chris showed of all those different systems that you can have within a hospital. It's impossible for Winscribe to be able to integrate properly into all those systems. So what Winscribe QSR allows is that you can actually take the speech recognition using the same voice profile and the same central management capabilities and dictate anywhere at the cursor. So I think you'll get a demo of that later. Okay, in terms of the market trends, so what are the things that are happening in the speech recognition market at the moment? So a lot of system providers are bolting on speech recognition, so they're taking their products and they're adding speech recognition to them. And by this I mean EPR providers, RIS providers, PACS providers, pathology systems. Some of them are doing that very well and are delivering it in a way that users like, and some of them are doing it because they need to have a tick in the box. They apply for a tender, the system must have speech recognition, right, we better embed something then. We'll embed Dragon, we'll embed something. We've got the tick in the box. We don't really know why we're doing it or how people use it, but we're going to do it anyway. And that leads to problems. You know, there are a lot of, I've seen RIS systems in the UK where Dragon Medical is bolted onto them, and you go to a radiology department and 20% of the users use it, and they're the ones that have bothered to put the time in to do it themselves, because these companies are good at building a RIS system, but the speech recognition is not their area of expertise. A lot of these bolt-on systems are based on the US model as well, which is a completely different model to the NHS. It's, small private hospitals. And the fact that we deliver a software development kit means that Winscribe can actually develop based on our technology for the NHS. We are not the experts with regards to the NHS. Winscribe are. We Recognosco are not trying to build a brand for ourselves, and we're not trying to go direct into the market. We want to deliver our solutions to our partners, who can then make sure that they fit the market that they're in. Some of the engine providers are going direct, and you probably have met with them or seen them at trade shows and probably visited you as well. Again, we're not going to do that, and there's several reasons for that. One being that us and none of the others actually have UK support staff, so they're trying to go direct with this technology, and again they're seeing it as an IT thing. Here's a box, off you go, you can use it. They don't have. We said earlier about implementation and how that's key. You need bodies on the ground when you're rolling this stuff out. You need to be able to nip problems in the bud right at the early stages. It conflicts with their partners as well, which is obviously going to cause issues, because the engine providers have partners that they sell through, and then they're selling direct, and they're often bidding for the same business as the partners, which is never going to lead to a pleasant experience. They don't have an NHS focus, so these companies are US based, and the NHS is a small market for them. You know, if you think about the UK and Europe compared to the US, I can tell you the speech recognition market absolutely dwarfs, the US market absolutely dwarfs the UK and European market. And therefore, without the NHS focus, they also don't have use case analysis. How are the individuals going to use the technology actually in the field? And the other thing that we see becoming a trend is clinical natural language processing and coding. That's becoming a bigger topic now. It's obviously linked to the paperless agenda. It means that it requires individuals to report in a more structured manner, and we've talked about templates earlier and the fact that you need to limit the number of templates that you have. I mean, there are Royal College of Physician guidelines on this as well regarding structured reporting. It's something that we very much keep on top of because we want to make sure that our solution fits in and our software fits in with that. And clinical coding absolutely works best when it's integrated with speech recognition, because that means you can do the whole process from start to finish without any manual steps, without having to, you know, a consultant's a very, very expensive data entry person, and they're not very good at it either, most of them. They're not typists, let's be honest. So yeah, that works best when it's integrated with speech recognition. Just finally, a quick couple of points on natural language processing. I don't know how familiar some of you are in the room. I'm not an expert on this, by the way, but Robert Miller from Clinithink, one of our partners, is in the room. So if you've got any more detailed questions about natural language processing, feel free to ask Robert on one of the breaks. It works alongside speech recognition, and what it allows is it means that you can extract actionable information from unstructured dictation. So a clinician can dictate as usual, and the information is then targeted and extracted and presented back to them in a way that they can actually use and give some structure to it. It allows for analytics. It also supports point-of-care decision support. So you can, if a clinician has dictated something that doesn't necessarily make sense or conflicts, you know, one example being that if they prescribe a medication that the patient's allergic to, then the system can pick up on that and actually give them a prompt and say, are you aware you've prescribed something that clinician's allergic to, etc. That's also part of it. Yeah, and assisted classification and coding as well. So yeah, I'll stay on the last one. Just one thing before I go. Again, I want to thank Winscribe for giving me the opportunity to come up and speak to you today. I've tried to keep it short and sweet. I'm around for the rest of the day and some of the evening as well, so if anyone's got any questions outside of the question panel and want to speak to me about specifics around speech recognition, I'm available. I think hopefully you can tell that it's not just a job for me. Speech recognition is something I'm really passionate about. I've worked in this industry for a long time. It's something I'm going to continue to focus on, and we've got a lot of advancements coming in our stuff, and I'm really excited about that, and I'm also excited to see the way that Winscribe continue to innovate by taking our technology and delivering it in a way that provides further benefits to the people in this room as well. Thanks very much.